the Remington Podcast, where we take a deep dive into all things ammunition. I'm your host, Audrey Mays, and today I'm joined by the ballistics engineer, Jimmy Lawrence.
Here I am.
We're here to talk to you about the history of a shot shell cartridge. Not a specific one, just shot shell cartridges in general.
Yeah, a specific feature of our industry, but not getting too wrapped up around anything other than what do you put in a shotgun to shoot it? Shotgun shells, if you would. Mm-hmm. And, looking at that is kind of an interesting way to look at the history of shotgunning across the board because they have all the same development points.
Progressions, yeah.
But it's actually a little bit longer of a string of history than the centerfire stuff that we've covered in the past.
Yeah.
So
I think if you go to history of a cartridge, I think is what the episode's called. It's me and Leland talking about it. So, yeah. So let's start with the origins of shotgunning.
Yeah, so the very first section of this history is going to be just getting the shotgun developed as we know it.
Yeah.
To get the sport going that we have to feed the ammo to. So all the way back at the beginning of guns as we know them, the 1600s, French started using their short matchlock muskets. We kind of covered this in a few other episodes to dribble shot and shoot at birds. Mm-hmm. And they realized that it was actually possible now to shoot a bird that's flying by. Because think about it, before that, if you wanted to go eat bird, you had to have a falcon or you had to throw a stick at it.
Right.
You could shoot it with a bow if you're really good. But all of a sudden, they realized these new muskets could shoot birds. So it became such a exciting sporting thing for them to do. That actually bred the very first competitions of bird shooting. Mm-hmm. So I found a story that they would call it an old hat shoot, where they'd sit like a top hat in a field with a pigeon under it, and you'd say pull, and someone would pull the hat back with a rope. Bird would fly up, and they'd shoot at it.
Mm-hmm. And if you look at like shotgun sports now, you use call pull for the bird to fly out of the trap or the sporting clays machine.
And through the years, that was pulling on a rope that freed the trap and threw the clay pigeon or the glass ball or whatever it became over the next couple hundred years.
Yeah.
But that actually goes way back to the very, very beginning of shotgunning. Mm-hmm. So as people got into shooting shotguns per se, instead of just a musket loaded with shot, they had to figure out what made that gun different from a musket. So in the 1700s is when you see the development of double barrels, a side-by-side flintlock. The flintlock mechanism made things a little bit quicker and easier. Damascus twist barrels made those barrels thinner on the sidewalls and longer and lighter. So now we're going from like 18 and 20-inch barrels up to 39-inch barrels.
Wow. And
you'd see these beautiful English, they look just like the modern, very, very nice English shotguns, only they got flintlocks.
And by Damascus, they're Damascus steel barrels, like what we know Damascus steel to be today.
Pattern welded. Yeah.
Wow, okay.
So they would actually take a strip of what we would consider like pattern welded Damascus steel and be twisted this way and twisted that way and forge welded together. Mm-hmm. They'd wrap it around a mandrel or a bar, and then they'd forge that into a single
barrel
tube.
Yeah.
And so what you're left with is these layers that you can see, beautiful, beautiful metallurgy that you can actually just look at. Mm-hmm. So people are pretty commonly aware of that's how gun barrels were made up until like 1900. That starts in the 1700s, but somewhere we go from these flintlock muzzle loaders to these break action double barrel side-by-sides. Mm-hmm. And everyone can think of a shotgun and immediately call that up in their mind.
Yeah.
100%. That happened way more quickly than anyone would have guessed. If you look at centerfire progression on breech loading, pistols, revolvers, all that other stuff happened so slowly. When they went from flintlock to percussion lock, then they almost immediately, within 10 or 15 years between 1830 and 1850, went straight to a break action, breech loading, cartridge fired shotgun. And it's interesting that it went so quickly in shotgunning and it took centerfire so long to catch up, but the pressures are lower, the use case is different. And what we wound up with was non-standardized. Every gun maker had their own type of cartridge. And it would be reloadable, but the trick there was now you could take a box of 10 or 15 shells with you out into the field, and instead of having to take your fowling piece and reload it with the wadding and the powder and the shot and all that stuff we've talked about before, You just open it up, stuff 2 new loads in it, close it, and shoot 2 more birds.
Yeah, it's the beginning of an actual like cartridge instead of individual components.
Yeah. So we've all thought about that, especially here on the podcast, different ways, different times of fighting wars, hunting animals. But this time it's kind of special and unique because we're out in the field hunting birds. Mm-hmm. And again, up until this point, it's been very exclusive that you didn't get to just sit down and eat a bird unless you had a good way to catch it.
Right.
Or farm it, raise it, etc.
Chickens.
So now all of a sudden we're able to shoot ducks and geese and all these other things like pigeons and eat them at a more common population level.
Yeah.
So
not only the rich get to eat birds, basically, at this point.
Right, because now what happens is with these cartridge shotguns, we're able to shoot enough birds to feed a town instead of a family. Because you can go out there and just shoot all day long. So that becomes a pretty common thing up through the late 1800s. Obviously, development for everything kind of slowed down during the Civil War.
Right.
But here comes our favorite year, 1867. So we enter the conversation as the Union Metallic Cartridge Company.
Remington enters the chat, some would say.
Yeah, that. So by 68, one of the very first things that they're offering to the public is a solid brass shotgun shell.
Yeah.
That's primed. So I'll sell you this primer in a cartridge for your shotgun. You can put your own load in it, whatever you want to do. Put a top wad and a crimp over that. So that's the disc at the front.
Right.
And then you shoot it, clean it out, put a new primer in it, and go again.
Yeah.
And those are black powder. So the UMC company is giving these hulls out for people to load their own and make their own. And it starts becoming more and more standardized at that point. Not much long later, Remington guns make their first real successful good side-by-side, the 1874. And now we're going to start feeding the guns and the ammo together, which we've been doing for a long, long time now, over 150 years, right? So 1873, 10 years after that first introduction of metallic cartridges, I don't know who had the patent before, but UMC actually acquired the patent for the paper shot shell cartridge that we know. And that lasts for close to 100 years as the normal, the rolled tube body with the brass crimped around a base wad and a primer inserted.
Which people still shoot.
Yep. Very nostalgic. Everyone loves the smell, is what they always say.
Yeah, the smell.
But it's the original shot shell cartridge that everyone's aware of. It's still very functional.
It looks like we know it to look like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And at this point, they're still selling those and marketing them as empty primed hulls, just a shell. And so they are selling 10 gauge and 12 gauge. And over the next couple of years, they add 4 gauge and 8 gauge.
Yeah.
And that's interesting because now we're talking about commercial hunting. A lot of people may be aware of punt guns. Now, instead of hand loading or hand muzzle loading a big giant 2-inch bore cannon to go shoot a whole bunch of ducks at one time with, you'd take your boat out, you would shoot it once. Now you have cartridges. So it's the same thing we talked about before. You can take those commercial hunting punts out and find these rafts of millions of birds and just keep paddling and reload and shoot and go collect them all. And so with these self-loaded cartridges, these commercial hunters were going out and bringing in more and more food to the point now where that bird meat is getting distributed and becoming fairly common for restaurants and people to be able to buy even at groceries. And that was really never a thing for anything other than ground birds like chickens that you would farm.
Right.
So the next big turning point is around 1885. That's when UMC actually loaded their first cartridges and sold as a complete ready-to-fire shell. And that was called Club. So that was actually the basis of what we now have as Gun Club for many years and Duck Club.
Yeah. A lot of people don't understand that that's a historical name.
The very first loaded round we called Club. Yep. And it was 1890, 1893, somewhere in there, we have the first primers being developed to work alongside with smokeless. So just the same as on pistol and rifle, we've started to go into nitrocellulose-based smokeless propellants and get more pressure and performance. The issue here is that on the shot shell side of things, these guns are all designed around black powder, so we've got to be very careful with that.
Yep.
Part of that is the primer technology isn't just lighting up black powder. So that comes late 1890s. Around the same time, Remington on the gun side is developing better steels for the barrels. So when we get fluid steel barrels that now replace the Damascus twists that have a propensity to untwist when you shoot them with smokeless.
Oh, wow. Okay. And so that's why they don't exist anymore.
Oh, they're around, but you have to load them with black powder or very downloaded shells.
Okay.
So those finished shotguns are very sensitive to pressures that are at the modern levels. And yeah, they're not frail, but they're designed to operate at that black powder pressure level.
More like a vintage gun.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And we've shot some of those. So in that 10-year period, now we're going from black powder paper shot shells to nitro express type shot shells, and all the barrels are now being either black powder proofed or nitro proofed. So once you get a nitro proof shotgun, you're pretty much done for the next 150 years of whatever. It's all the same. Chamber pressures, performances. We've gotten a lot better technologies around the materials and things like that. But you could pretty well say the modern shotgun came into existence in like 1895.
Okay.
And from there on out, all we're doing is refining and making the cartridges more cost effective and things like that.
Yeah.
Performances obviously are going to be shifting with these technologies. So a few of those good ones, early 1900s, we've got the smokeless propellant, but our priming compound is still fairly corrosive. So at the same time, we have the clean bore rimfire and clean bore centerfire. We come out with the clean bore shot shell as well. And at those same times, we've got names like Nitro Express and Sure Shot, and a lot of the really well-recognized Remington products are actually entering the catalogs.
Yeah. And if you walk into any academy, you'll still see Sure Shot. It's still there. So.
And, 34 comes along, and we acquire Peters. So that's where you'll see the P around the primer. Remington Peters becomes our P.
And I believe it's the only blue hole that we have now.
We still use it on reduced recoil slug and buckshot.
Okay,
but,
gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was the trademark look for Peters shot shell was blue. And, back then they had a lot of different colors on these papers. Remington even had red shot shell back then.
Wow. That is you're not going to find that today.
Not today. Yeah. Green,
gold,
all kinds of different colors
black.
On the paper.
Yep.
Which kind of leads us into the next real big thing. We've got some different wad technology shows up throughout that period of time. The power pistons coming in. Nothing really changes until we get into the SP period. We'll see SP 12 double-aught buck.
Yeah.
You'll see SP 12 6-shot, steel and plastic.
We change our crimp, right? You go from the roll to the star.
Yeah, folding the crimp in instead of rolling over a top wad.
Yep.
It takes a little bit different tooling for the home hand loader, but that paper cartridge used to be, as we mentioned, roll crimped over top of a card or a top wad. And sometime in the 40s, they went to a star crimp where it was folded down in that 6 pedal or 8 pedal pattern that we're used to.
We see now.
Yep.
Which, TSS still uses the top wad, obviously. But in normal target loads, normal loads, it's just one piece wad and no top wad and star crimp.
Yeah, and if you're having a hard time imagining what the roll crimp looks like, it's the same thing we would put on a slugger. So the slug will be visible, and then the body of the shot shell is physically rolled down over it and tucked in.
Yeah.
So you'll see it on those old shot shell cartridges, just a flat top with the rim around the outside of it where the mouth is rolled over. Cool thing is they would print the top wad with the shot size and the dram equivalent and things like that.
Oh, that's sweet.
So they didn't have to print it on the body. And that way, whatever you're loading, that wad is what you put over it, and it identified it. So when they first went to those star crimps, they still didn't have a good idea where the heck to put that information. So they put a little round sticker, a little label right over the top of the star crimp, and it had the shot information on it. So when you see that old Remington paper shot shell ammo from the 50s,
Yep.
you'll notice it has a good clean crimp, but they've still got a little paper label stuck right over top of the crimp.
This is funny because, you don't know that something's going to be different or vintage or something when you're buying it, but I know people who still have boxes of that kind of ammunition, it's cool to see the stickers on top.
Yeah, of course. And around here at the factory, we've mentioned we're all at some level cartridge collectors,
Yes.
whether it's a sample on our desk that we need to test or if it's some things we've found over the years. We've got a lot of old ammo around to look at. So yeah, in the 60s is when the first next real big changes, and that's the plastic body.
Right.
So
The what we know now, basically.
Yep.
Yeah.
And, for a period of time, every individual component of the cartridge was, experimenting and changing materials. I found we were messing around with steel case head material all the way back into 1937 or earlier than that, trying to figure out how to keep steel from rusting, what made it look good and feel like brass, act like brass, but be steel. So the different platings that we've come up with over the years, Nizen on our gun club, the nickel zinc, brass plated steel we use in a lot of the field loads and things like that.
Yep.
Took years and years of development to get that material right where it would go out in the field and not rust, not look ugly, hold the head together, not pull off the body, all those things. And when we combine that with a plastic body tube and eventually the plastic base wad, now we have our modern shot shell cartridge that we're loading still today, and it's a 3-piece body. So it has the sidewall, your green corrugated, and then it has that plastic base wad, yellow or black, and then the cap holds it all together, and it's a steel cap. So we, between the development of power piston 1-piece wads and that, pretty well have taken our lead development all the way up to where it lives today, more or less. Steel gets involved in terms of the payload sometime 70s or 80s, because we've talked about that before. I think Shot Science.
Yeah, we have. That's an old one.
Yep.
Now, at this point, that's an old episode, but yeah, go check it out.
And that's pretty well cementing Remington's shotgun and shot shell ammo partnership for the next, 50 years. And we're still hunting with that technology of ammo, better powders, better shot technology. But the cartridge is basically where it lives. The last real big development we do is for the target shooter and for the field loads like Game Load and Gun Club is to make that entire body out of one piece of plastic with a cap on it instead of having a separate base wad. So 1980 in Bridgeport is when they developed what we call the rotary cam process or the unibody.
Yep.
And it's a 1-piece plastic base wad and body tube that has the cap crimped on in a similar fashion.
Yeah.
But now you have the tapered interior body, and it's highly reloadable. And we've gone over what makes that body so unique and special. But once that moves down here to Lone Oak in 1984, from there on out, the development history is all just better, faster, more reliable, things like that.
Yeah. At this point, I feel like there might not be any more huge changes to ammo and guns, but they're like small tweaks that make the technology just perform in a more efficient way.
Well, everything on the inside of the cartridge keeps getting better year over year.
Yeah.
And if we're only talking about the vessel, put whatever you want, just like the original very first idea. Put whatever you want in it, nails and broken glass.
Yeah, rocks.
But the cartridge still does its job and gets it down the bore. So, yeah, those developments that make everything better every year are wads, plastic materials for those, the design of them, shot material, how to handle and process that shot, and then, of course, propellant type selection. And propellant technology keeps getting better. And so there's a lot going on with every load we have. But when you look at those breakpoints of what made that cartridge capable of holding all that together, we still have pretty much the same pressure specs on these things we've always had. We're just able to push things faster and further.
And the cool part about shot shells, I think, is that anywhere you go, you'll probably meet someone who has some kind of old shot shell. Like the first time I saw an all brass shot shell cartridge wasn't even a year. My dad had one. So when I was a kid, like I saw it in his shop, you know what I mean? So I already knew that was a thing. And then the paper holes, like I said, people still shoot those and still choose to shoot those.
Well, there's old originals still around that people will shoot and reload, but there's still people today, obviously Federal and Remington and Peters, still have paper shot shell offerings out there on occasion. But, funny mention about the brass shot shell, there for a long time, that's what there was as the standard. Especially you'll see people with old 10 gauges with these odd chamber lengths, and they'll get a set of brass cartridges cut to that length and reload them just time and time and time again. But the neat thing was, we talked about Remington in wartime. Our shot shell ammo was there as well. So obviously today we have the 870, but back then there was trench guns in World War I and World War II. The ammo we were sending for the GIs to shoot was brass shells. So all the way up until World War II, brass shells were still an option. And they didn't risk it with the paper shells because if they get wet, they kind of come apart and stick in the gun, do odd stuff. And, we had done things like the wet proofing to make that better. But that was the last of those brass shot shells in mass production was for World War II. After that, it was a very boutique-y collector's item to find or for us to make sometimes. You'll see some around the plant still from when we did some back in the 2000s. So really neat stuff.
Yeah, I just the progression of shotgun shells to me is the progression of hunting in America. It's not a rich man sport. Like the American model of wildlife conservation tries to make it for everybody. And I think like this is a really good example of how that happened.
And it changed it more than centerfire did, I think.
Yes.
So
and faster.
You still archery hunt.
Yes.
500, 600 years ago, they were archery hunting.
Right.
You go out, you stick one elk with one arrow, and you bring home one elk to eat. The wing shooting in the middle of the 1800s changed so fast and so drastically with the cartridge technology.
Yeah.
They extincted the passenger pigeon. I don't know if you've heard that story. I'm sure you have.
I actually didn't know that. No, I didn't know.
There was an entire plentiful population of these pigeons in America. And as we moved across the prairies, people shot them all and ate them. Like it went that quick that they just ate them all.
Yeah.
Because they were able to go out with cartridge-loaded shotguns and a box of shells and get that food onto the table. And it is very unique to wing shooting that it happened that fast. And it was because of breech-loading shotguns.
Yeah. And actually thinking about going back to, the 8-gauge and the 4-gauge, I can't imagine shooting a gun from, the 1870s. That's a 8-gauge. They shouldered an 8-gauge and shot it at birds. That's wild.
The 10 and the 8 gauges were about as big as people would shoulder. When you got into 4-gauge and 2-gauge, those were strapped down to a boat.
Oh, okay.
And so you'd paddle and sneak up and paddle and
like
sneak up.
Like the punt guns. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and they look just like a shotgun, but their stock, if you look at them, was made more to support and lash down than it was to actually shoulder. And you might see that old photo that's floating around from the 1800s of someone with like a monstrous 8-foot long shotgun over their buddy's shoulder and two guys in suits. That was a punt gun designed to actually be strapped in a boat, even though they made it to look like and function just like a regular gun.
So you're telling me the people were just tiny?
Yeah. That's the other alternate option.
The alternate option, yeah. Oh my gosh. Okay, well, thank you. That was a really succinct and good walk through history. Appreciate you being here.
Yeah, just shotgun shells.
There you have it, guys. Remington is on the rise. Like, comment, subscribe, and be sure to share this podcast with your hunting or shooting buddies. If you have any questions for me or Jimmy here, you can email us at podcast@remington.com. Thanks for listening.